I was 17 years old and preparing to enter my senior year of high school when I first saw American Graffiti. I even happened to take a picture of the marquee as I was leaving the theater. Going into the movie, my expectations weren't too high. All I knew about the film was that it featured this car and that this was the album cover for the soundtrack. Neither of these images were signaling a particularly relatable movie for someone who was born in 2001. But as it turned out, George Lucas's nostalgic coming-of-age story really connected with me. I actually liked it so much that I changed my senior course schedule to include a filmmaking class. But why did I like it so much then, and why does it continue to hold up now? To answer these questions, I have to think about the movie in two distinct ways. First, it's a coming-of-age story about a kid who's about to go to college. But it's also a nostalgia piece from a director reflecting on his own teen years. Curt is looking to his future, and George Lucas is reflecting on his past. So without further ado, this is American Graffiti, looking forward and looking back.
You just can't stay 17 forever. You've got to get that through your head.
When I was 17, it was easy to relate to Curt Henderson. He's worried about his future, he's lonely at times, and he's becoming disillusioned with the people he used to look up to. I think most people would agree that these pains of growing up are universal. But unlike Curt, I didn't have much hesitation about going to college. What I did connect with was his broader crisis about what to do with his future. He questions what comes after high school in the same way that I was starting to. He clearly needs someone to advise him, and at first he tries his high school teacher. Curt looks up to the teacher in that bright-eyed, youthful way, seeking wisdom and guidance from the cooler and older friend. He opens up about his problem, hoping for some advice.
Well, I'm not really sure that I'm going.
But after he learns the teacher is in a relationship with a student, he makes a tough realization. The teacher isn't worthy of his admiration. Key to the coming-of-age movie, it's the deep pain of disillusionment. In this case, Curt realizes that people older than him are not necessarily wiser. He has to leave his old friend behind in order to grow. This kind of scenario never happened to me, and yet this scene always feels somehow relatable. Learning the harder reality of life and being willing to let go of old things is what growing up is about. And as short as this moment of Curt walking away is, it portrays that concept perfectly.
We are going to remember all of the good times, is what we're going to do.
American Graffiti is not just a work of George Lucas's nostalgia. In some ways, the film is about nostalgia. In other words, nostalgia is something the characters themselves are participating in. Curt's nostalgia for his high school days packs the biggest emotional punch. When he returns to school for the freshman hop, he ends up in a lonely hallway, trying to wrap himself in the blanket of his comfort zone. His separation from the music in the gym creates a haunting echo, as if those high school memories are tormenting him. He tries to open his old locker for comfort, but finds the combination has already been changed. George Lucas explains the general purpose of this scene in his DVD commentary.
What you're seeing here is symbolic of what's happening to him, which is he's now being locked out of his childhood.
What better way to explain that yearning feeling of nostalgia than by saying we're locked out of our own childhood? I've been back to high school a few times since graduating, and when I walk on campus, this is exactly how it feels. The classrooms and the hallways are all the same, but it just feels different. Once you're beyond the student experience, you're out of touch, and there's really no going back. That's where the pain of nostalgia comes from. We want to relive those good high school memories, but we can't. Of course, high school memories aren't all good, but even with bad memories, there can be longing to go back. It's the feeling of regret, in which you hate that you can't go back because you can't redo your biggest mistake. The pain of looking back is no more evident than in the film's ending titles, where we learn what happened to the four boys. After an otherwise cheerful film, this card is completely out of place tonally. Suddenly, our beloved characters are killed by a drunk driver and found missing in action in Vietnam. It's bleak, plain and simple. But I have to say, this card always gives me chills of the best kind. Lucas laments that the innocence of 62 is over, but he's also acknowledging that it is over. When we deal with our best memories, we can't wallow forever in looking back. As hard as it may be, we have to appreciate those good moments and then move on with humility. That's what American Graffiti is about.